The Senate chamber was silent, too silent, the kind of silence that presses on your chest and makes every heartbeat sound like a drum. Cameras clicked in the background, and all eyes turned to the two men seated across from each other. Senator John Kennedy of Louisiana, and Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas. What started as a simple congressional hearing was about to explode into one of the most unforgettable confrontations Washington had ever seen. John Kennedy leaned forward, his voice smooth as honey but sharp as a blade. "Justice Thomas," he began, "you and I both took an oath to serve the people, not ourselves. But I have to ask, when did that oath start to mean less than power?" The room gasped. No one talked to Clarence Thomas like that, not in public, not ever. Thomas, stoic as ever, adjusted his glasses and tried to smile. "Senator," he replied coolly, "you may not understand what it means to uphold the Constitution under pressure. It's not about pleasing crowds it's about principle." Kennedy nodded slowly, eyes narrowing. "Principle," he echoed. "That's a fine word. But when principle becomes an excuse for ignoring the people who trusted you, it's not principle anymore, it's pride." For a moment, no one moved. Then Kennedy reached into the folder before him and pulled out a stack of letters, handwritten notes from ordinary Americans, farmers, teachers, veterans. "You see these?" he said, raising them high. "These are from folks who believe justice has left the courtroom. People who've lost faith in the very system you swore to protect. And I'll tell you something, Justice Thomas, of faith, once lost, doesn't come back easy." The air crackled. Cameras zoomed in as Kennedy read aloud a letter from a single mother in Missouri, whose case had been dismissed after years of appeals. Then one from a veteran denied benefits. Then another from a small business owner crushed under corporate legal loopholes. Each word hit harder than the last. Thomas shifted in his seat. His expression began to waver. "Now," Kennedy said, his southern drawl deepening, "I don't expect perfection from anyone. Lord knows I'm not perfect. But I expect honesty. I expect compassion. And I expect accountability from every person who sits in judgment over another." Thomas tried to interject, "Senator, the judiciary cannot be swayed by emotion." But Kennedy cut him off, his voice thundering now, echoing through the chamber. "Emotion is not weakness, Justice. It's humanity. And if our courts lose their humanity, then justice ain't blind, it's heartless." The crowd erupted. The chamber burst into applause, a wave of approval that drowned out the pounding of the gavel. Even reporters stood in disbelief, their pens frozen mid-sentence. Thomas looked shaken. For the first time, his unbreakable composure cracked. He opened his mouth, then closed it again. There were no words. Kennedy had spoken not from politics, but from the heart, and it hit deeper than any argument ever could. As the noise settled, Kennedy leaned back, his tone softening. "Justice Thomas," he said quietly, "I don't want to destroy you. I want to remind all of you, say that power without empathy is just tyranny with better lighting." Silence returned, but this time, it was different. Heavy, yes, but thoughtful. Even Thomas, humbled and silent, seemed to nod slightly, acknowledging a truth too sharp to ignore. After the hearing, news outlets exploded. "Kennedy destroys Thomas in seconds." One headline read, "Crowd erupts as Kennedy defends the people," shouted another. But for Kennedy, it wasn't about headlines. As he walked down the marble steps of the Capitol, he paused to look out at the sunset. He wasn't smiling, just reflective. A young journalist caught up to him and asked, "Senator, what made you go after him like that?" Kennedy stopped. He looked her in the eye and said, "Because somewhere along the line, folks in power forgot that justice isn't about laws, it's about lives." Somebody had to remind them. That night, the clip went viral. Millions watched as Kennedy's voice echoed across screens and hearts alike. It wasn't the words that made people cry, it was the truth behind them. The reminder that even in politics, compassion still matters. Weeks later, during another hearing, Clarence Thomas entered quietly and took his seat. This time, before speaking, he looked out at the crowd and said something unexpected. "Before I begin, I want to say this, I was reminded recently that justice without empathy is empty. I intend to do better." The chamber fell silent again, but this time, it was the silence of respect. In the end, Kennedy hadn't destroyed Thomas, he had awakened him. And in doing so, he reminded a divided nation that real strength doesn't come from titles or robessa, it comes from the courage to care, even when it's unpopular.